This is a duck. Oh my gosh, not this again. Wait. Oh, okay. This is what we're doing today. So this is a duck from the game Duck Life 1. I played this game a lot as a kid, and I always had the question, what is the least important skill? So today we're going to be doing an experiment to find out which of the skills is the least important, whether it's run, swim, or fly. So let's talk about the parameters for the experiment. First, we're going to try to separate each skill's effects so that we can see how it performs independently. To do that, we're going to level every skill except our chosen skill to the max value, and then our chosen skill, let's say we want to see if run is the most important. We're going to level that skill up 10 by 10, which you may be thinking 10 is too much, but I assure you once we get to the results, you'll see that 10 is enough granularity for us to see the actual effects. So we're going to level the skill in increments of 10, and then keep track of the races you win at certain skill levels. And naturally, whichever skill level is the lowest and lets you beat the game is likely the least important. So we're going to compare all of the skills at the end. Now I know what you're thinking. What about energy? So as far as I know, and feel free to correct me in the comments, can't promise I'll reply, but I will see them. Energy only exists to make sure you have enough energy to get through the whole race, and it does not make you faster or more skilled in anything. So we're just going to use like the power candy or the power pellets, I forget exactly what they're called, to level our duck up. And if it's not maxed before the first race, it doesn't really matter because as far as I know, it does not affect any of the individual things. Now, the mini games themselves are basically no more advanced than like the Dino game from Chrome or the motorcycle game from Vivaldi. It's a typical browser game to level up the skills. So forgive me if we cut a bit of those out because I can't say the gameplay is incredibly entertaining. However, after we level up each skill in their mini games, we are going to go on an eating frenzy. So here's a montage of the duck eating. It's just this montage. The duck will not eat again in the entire video because this might be the most boring thing in the game. Before we get into the video, I wanted to say, if you enjoy this video at all, please like it. It really helps with the algorithm and getting my content out in front of more people. And if you enjoy what we're doing here and you'd like to come along, the subscribe button's right below the video. I would love it if you pressed it. We are quickly on our way to hopefully around 500 subscribers. If you want to chat about this game at all or talk about any of the methods used in the video, please feel free to leave a comment. I try to respond to as much of them as I can. So generally, here's how the gameplay loop of this game works. You start the game, and then I have a bunch of food here. That's not important. But you go through each of these training games, which you'll see many times, and then you enter the races. There are 4 locations, each with 4 races. They all have 4, except the World Championship, which is just 1 race where you fight against the final duck. So what we'll be doing is, as we said in the intro, maxing out every skill, and then we're going to be doing every race that we have available to us, so beginner, amateur, expert, etc., and seeing at what point in the skill can you beat the races. Without further ado, let's start with swim. So first we're going to level up run to the max, and then level up fly to the max, and then we're going to do what I said in the intro about incrementing every 10 levels and trying to see where swim gets us. So to start out, we're going to be maxing out the run skill, and as you can see, this takes a whole bunch of runs, and the browser game aspect of it, I mean, isn't really too entertaining, but after some time, we will get to level 150, and it's pretty simple. You just jump over these things, and it's important that you collect enough coins here to fill up the energy enough so that you don't have to do anything in terms of like energy or spending money after these races. But we reached level 150, and here's the graph of how long it took, with level of run being there and minigame attempts being on the x-axis. So it's a pretty straight line. Obviously, you can see there's jumps of skill at certain points, especially at the end. I feel like I have a few good runs, and then I get much better. But with running done, we're going to move on to flying. And so flying is a little bit different from running. It's not as skill-based, and you'll see at the end what I mean by that. So it starts off with you automatically going a certain amount, and then as you build up your level, you can go further and further without falling, but eventually you reach such a low speed that you fall regardless. So it kind of makes an exponential curve where as your level gets higher, you can overall gain more levels per attempt, as you can see. But overall, that's it, and we're going to move on to the swimming aspect. Now that we're in the swimming part of the run, we're going to start doing the races, and this is the races we're doing without putting any levels in swimming. So we beat one race, we beat two races, and then this is a longer race, but we do end up beating it as well, so this is the main swimming one of this world. And what's important to note is that with running and flying being at max, you can see everything either has a running or a flying component to even get into the swim. So with flying being at such a high level like we have here, we don't even have to do the swim part, so the weakness of our duck is completely minimized. That's 4 races. We move on to the next world. We get 5 races done. We move on to a flying race. And obviously, this race doesn't have any swimming, it's just flying and running, so we finish it. That's 6 races done. And here, unfortunately, this is a very long stretch of swimming, and even though we have running at max, it is not enough for us to win this race. So we'll have to come back to this one after gaining some swimming levels. This one, though, it's a very long race, and with that flying section, we skip a lot of the swimming. So we will beat this race after another running section, and then there's a flying section, and then after that, we move on to this banister climb again, and we finish up this race in first place after another little bit of a swim. But like I said, since we have flying so high, it doesn't really matter. So now we're going to work on our swimming level, and we're going to increment it by 10 every time. So to start off, the swimming game is a little buggy, but we get to level 10, we get to level 20, and now we reattempt this race. And so we've reached 7 races with no swimming levels. And now we're about to hit 8 races with only 20 swimming levels, which it's lucky that we have enough running power to finish that up. So now we go into the volcano world, and the first one, obviously there's no swimming, so we're good there. There's just flying and running here, so we're good there. Would be weird if they had you land in the lava and try to swim. So we do not do well in that race. I cut out a lot of the swimming because it would be boring to watch me swim alone for the entire time. But overall, we're almost there in this race. So we're at 10 races with 20 levels. That's pretty good. We've got to get to level 30. And then at level 30, we have enough to finish one more of the races, I believe. And it's the one where there wasn't a ton of swimming and there was a lot of other sections. So at level 30, we can finish this race, and everyone's catching up to me at the end, but we have enough running to finish off the race. Now we get swimming to 40, 50, 60, and every time we do 10 of these, I am testing where we're at in terms of finishing the race. So we get to level 100, and then we're finally fast enough to not beat all of the other ducks in the swimming portions, but we're being supplemented by our run skill being so high that the opening and ending running bits are good, and we move on to the final duck race. And now a lot of this is running and flying, so I wouldn't be shocked if we could do it at level 100. So the first bit, we run up all these stairs, and we're getting a little lucky with the placement of the stairs, because it feels like we're jumping up 2 of the stairs a lot more than the other duck is. We finish off the flying section, basically just, we don't need to do any running. And keep in mind, our swimming level is still at 100. So we expect this other duck, and as you can see, he is gaining on us in the swimming section. But with how high our running and flying is, we are all good to finish it off right there. That's the end of that. So, as you can see in the graph, we spent a lot of time at 7 races, and then we jump up to 10, and then we spend a lot of time at 11 races. That's that huge straight line we're in on now. And then you can beat the entire game with swimming at 100 levels. So, swim kind of had an abysmal performance. You can beat the game with swim at only level 100. And you can beat 7 levels before leveling swim at all. That's insane, and I'm excited to see what fly and run hold, because I can't imagine it is going to be worse than swim. I think we may already have our answer, but we will still test the other options. With swim done, we move on to fly. So we're going to 100% the other skills, and then we are going to see where fly gets us as we increment 10 by 10. Now, here we are at the flying section. So first we need to max out the other skills. We're going to max out swim first, which as you can see, this one's a little buggy. If you get on the wrong side of some of the obstacles, they like stop you, and then I have an insane run here where I get so many levels, and you'll see when we go over the graph that this is just a huge jump, and I am locked in right here. I am trying so hard. So as you can see from the graph, we spend a little time in like a normal straight line, and then we jump up with that monster run that I was talking about, and then it levels off at the end. Now we're going to do running, and we already showed running a little bit in the intro, but I wanted to take this time to talk a little bit more about the running game specifically. So it is pretty difficult because they do send you a little bit of bad RNG sometimes, like with 2 of these rolling logs being at different intervals like that. It's a little bit difficult to get the timing right onto exactly when you're supposed to jump, and as you can see, like, I jumped a little too late there. But running's at level 50, and we see a similar line to what we saw before. So overall, I wouldn't say that I got too good at running. I think the RNG component plays a little bit into the running ability. Now, it's time to do the actual flying part of the test. So we finished up the first race, no problems, and as you can see here, our flying level is 0. We literally have not put anything into flying yet, but it doesn't really matter for the early races because most of them are just running and swimming, and the sections with flying, you land in either a running or swimming section, so we've got plenty of other supplement to make up for our lack of flying ability. Now, the lack of flying ability is interesting in some of the later races, but in these first 4, you land straight on a running section, and of course our running and swimming are maxed, so we have more than enough time and speed to get through the other races. And with that, we've cleared 4 races, we've cleared the first world with 0 flying experience. Now, after a banister climb, we get to an interesting race. So we run off this, and then we need to start flying. Now, as you can see, there is nothing under this. There's no running, no swimming section. So we fall what looks like to our death. So we'll be back for that race. But after that, we hit a swimming race, that's simple. And then we get to another flying race where there is this monster gap. And we don't finish. We fall to our death, and it's very clear that we need to put in some skills into flying to be able to clear this. And as you can see, once you fall all the way down, your duck is still alive and running. And we actually beat the other ducks because I assume it's just a running section under there in the code. But obviously it doesn't give us the win. We finished that in last place. So now we need to get our flying skill up to 10. And we need to get it up to 20. We need to get it up to 30. But before that, I wanted to try the race again just to see where we were. And obviously, we don't finish that gap. We don't finish the other gap. So I let the flying go to 20. I try the races again. It doesn't work. I get flying to 30. And now here we are where we can finish both gaps. So we fly. We manage to fly successfully into where we're going. And then we run to the win. Now the second race, this one, we get there. And obviously, the other ducks are much higher flying level than we are. So it looks a little bleak, but luckily our swim and run are high enough to where we can finish the race in first. So after this other flying bit, all that's left between us and the win is a banister climb. And we almost win. We almost don't win. This is one of the closer ones. There's one more flying section though. And this is interesting. Before this run, I had never managed to make my duck take the bottom path, because typically I just level up everything to max before we even start. So we actually skip another flying section, and we get the win. Now it's time for the lava world. And this one's interesting. It starts off with a run. Obviously, we win the run section. And then here's this flying section, where if you don't make it across, you get spawned at the main screen, and your duck is now black, because he got burned to death. Or maybe not to death, but he's clearly got a lot of ash, so I switched the color back to yellow. And we do the swimming race, and then I believe we do the overall race. But if you haven't noticed yet, the overall races are just the pieces of all the other races. So we start up the hill running, and then we fly into the lava again. And you know what happens when we fly into the lava. So we need to get our flying skill a little higher. We get to 40, we go to 50, we go to 60, we go to 70 and 80 and 90. And then here we are. We finally have enough flying skill to get across this gap. And it is just barely we have enough flying skill. But we finish that part, and then we try the huge race. So for some reason in the huge race, we don't actually have enough flying skill to get there. Maybe the gaps are different. Maybe there's a little RNG. I'm not sure. But we try the final race again. We managed to get over the gap this time with flying level 100. And obviously the rest of the race is just running and swimming. So we finish up, we're at we're at fly level 100, and now we are good to take on the final race. However, the final race doesn't go very well. So I level up to 110, and shockingly, only 10 more levels of flying does it. So we get through the run phase, and our saving grace here really is that most of the flying sections immediately dump into a run section, which obviously run is maxed. So like, even though we're losing time here, we can gain some time by running. And the way the final race is set up, I believe you're a little faster in terms of running and swimming than the other duck if you're maxed. Yeah, like you can see, swimming, it's always the most obvious. So we are gaining just ever so slight spacing, but all that's left is a running section, and we beat the game with flying. So we're at 6 races for a while. We jump up to 10 like we did for swimming, and then each of 10 levels, we clear another race. We get to 11, 12, and then we beat the game. So now we're done with fly. So you can beat 6 levels without any skill in fly at all. A little bit better than swim, which was 7. However, not much better. So we spend a lot of time at 6 races, and then we jump up to 10 races, and then it's a linear up from there. So overall, I would say this is more important than swim, and we will see what run holds for us. Now it's time for the one you've all been waiting for. Run feels like it's going to be the most important, because you run even into and out of flying and swimming sections. But we will test it. First, we will 100% swim and fly, and then we'll increment by 10 and run. And I have to break it to you now. There are 2 times in here where I don't hit the 10 level exactly. However, in terms of the results of the challenge, it really doesn't matter. Like we've done with swim and now flying, it's time to do that same thing with running. And you know what that means. First, we have to get the other 2 skills to max. And swimming overall, after 100%ing swimming twice now, I would say swimming is the most skill-based of the games, because the obstacles are placed pretty far apart, and as long as you're not being stupid or trying to go after coins that you shouldn't be going after, you have more than enough time to react. So overall swimming, this graph looks pretty similar to the first graph, with the exception of I didn't have a monster run at all here. So overall, pretty linear. I think it's clear that swim is definitely skill-based. And now we move on to flying, which is ironically the least skill-based, because of that cap that we had talked about the first time, where after you run out of speed, you cannot progress any further. Your duck just falls into the abyss. And that speed that you start with is capped by your level. So as you gain more levels, you start with more speed, you slow down. I think it's the same slowdown rate probably, but since you start at such a higher speed, you slow down over a longer time and can gain more levels. And as you can see, it's the same exponential curve we saw the first time. To start off with running, we're going to do what we've done with all of the other skills and see how far we can get without leveling up running at all. Now, this is kind of interesting because, like I mentioned before, every single swimming or flying section typically has a running section both before and after it. So it's kind of, instead of run supplementing the bigger section, it's do we have enough skill in the bigger section to offset the run ability? So it works for 2 races, and even on that swimming one, I would kind of like a photo finish. But we get run up to level 10, and then we try the other races out. So overall, this one, we spend a lot of time just hopping our way along while everyone else finishes around us. However, we do outfly and outswim them. So typically, we can get lucky, well, it's probably not luck, but be skilled enough to get to the end before them, even though we are severely lacking in running skill. So we had one more race, and it's obviously the longer race. So we get to run level 20, and then we try and successfully complete the longer running race. Now, this brings us to an interesting point. To complete any world, we need to get it to where we at least win the majority run race. So we get to 30 and 40, and then we have enough running skill now to defeat the swimming race of the second world. And as you can see, we are much better swimmers than the other ducks. However, obviously we're not as good runners. And here, I don't know where the hitbox is. I don't think we should have been in first there. But that's the only race we can do before we get to a point where we are now beating the other ducks in the running event in this world. And that's at run level 50. So this run section's gonna be a pretty long section for us. So we complete the running section, and now we have enough flying and swimming built up to where we can beat this race. And this is the longer race, so as you can see, we get a really big gap in the flying and swimming section, and all we need is enough run, really, to fend them off and maintain our lead. Because obviously, they're better runners than us. You can see that plain as day right here. They are completely catching up to us. Luckily for us, that section that kind of haunted us in the fly section where we had to go below, which doesn't matter because we had our run maxed out. This time there's 2 flying sections and a running section. So that world is almost done. We just need to finish this flying race, which shouldn't have been an issue in general. However, we hit this wall, and our flying level being so high was actually kind of a deterrent, because we would hit it so high and then not have enough run to get there. And as you can see there, that's one of the things I alluded to, where our run is at 71 instead of 70 right now. For the graphs and stuff, I did actually change it to be 70, and then the other one, spoiler alert, is 90 we overshot. I changed it to be 70 and 90. It doesn't change the results in general, but just wanted to call out, I know that's kind of a bad practice, changing up the data to fit whatever we have, but the graphs wouldn't have looked as good, and overall the points we maintained are still accurate. Especially, like, we didn't pass a race at 91. We had to wait till 100 anyway. We did pass a race at 71, but I think we would have still passed at 70. But before anyone comes at me in the comments about data security and stuff like that, just wanted to let that out there. So our run is now level 20, and there's only one run race standing in between us and the champion duck. So with our run at 120, we managed to finish this race, and I know I'm speaking a little bit ahead of the clip. Believe it or not, I know what happens. So we finished this race, and we are at 120, and before we can even attempt the world champion and win, we have to actually get our run to 140. So run actually needs to be almost completely maxed out. Now, we'll just sit back and watch this. Run, we are pretty much neck and neck with, and that is the majority of this race, is running. You run up the stairs, and then you fly down the stairs, which we are obviously going to skip a lot of the other running sections with our fly skill being maxed, which is pretty lucky for us. And it looks like the other duck actually has a pretty high flying skill, because we're not really gaining as much distance as I think we should be there. We land one more time for running, and then we get into the last swim section. And this swimming portion is the only thing standing in between us and finishing the experiment. As you can see, with run, it is pretty linear. Actually, every 10 levels of run corresponds more or less to one new race, with a definite gap there at the end. As you can see, it is definitely the most important skill. I'll spoil the ending of the video from there. Run is the most important. So you can only beat 2 levels with 0 levels of run, and it takes you up until 140 levels of run to beat the game. The skill is almost required to be at max to beat the game. So there are a few other questions that can be answered. Is this game a skill game? The answer is mostly yes. As you can see in the comparison of our skill levels gained, with swim and run, the better you are at the game, the faster you will get there. So swim and run, completely skill-based. Now, fly, on the other hand, is not. If I showed you these two graphs, you would say they are the same graph, and it's only when they're overlaid with each other you can see any difference. So the way fly worked throughout the game is it starts at a certain level, and then as you gain more levels in fly, you can fly further and further in the minigame, thus netting you more levels. So you can see it's kind of an exponential curve. So is it skill-based? Run and swim, definitely yes. Fly, definitely not. Now it's time to compare the skills against each other. As you can see, run is by far the most important skill. You cannot clear the game without run being at 140. Followed by run is fly, which spends a lot of the game below swim. They meet one time, but then you need fly at a higher level to finish the game. Now swim's kind of abysmal. You start with 7 races before swim is even leveled, and you move up quickly to 11 races won. At 100 levels, you can beat the game with swim, which is insane. So what is the least important skill in Duck Life? Clearly it's swim. And with that, we are done here. Thank you so much for watching this. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe. This is a little bit of a different kind of video from what we've been recording the past couple of weeks, but if you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments. I think these experiment videos are pretty fun and should be included with our challenge videos, because that's what a challenge really is in the end, is an experiment. So at the end of the day, as we can see, run's the most important ability, swim is the least important. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.